Welcome back to The Long Run with Sean Bell. In this episode, I had the privilege of sitting down with a great friend of mine, Lachy Cameron. Lachy is an ultra runner in his late 20s from Sydney, Australia, and holds the record as the fastest person to run from Brisbane to Sydney, an incredible achievement that only scratches the surface of his story. What makes this conversation so powerful is Lachy's openness and vulnerability. He dives deep into the challenges he has faced, including a complex and painful relationship with his biological father that led to deep feelings of rejection from a young age. We explore how those early struggles shaped him and how over time, running became more than just a sport. It became a vehicle for self-discovery and personal growth. This is an inspiring episode about resilience, mental health, and the power of purpose. Trigger warning, this episode includes references to mental health and suicide. If you or someone you know is struggling, please call Lifeline on 131114. You are not alone. Let's get into it. Lachy Cameron, welcome to The Long Run.
Thank you, mate. Happy to be here again.
Would you call that the second or third time?
Second. Second, yeah.
Second, yeah. Oh, mate, it's great to have you here. I think, firstly, you were the first guest that I've hosted the warm-up. How'd you find that?
Oh, that was really good. I think it's an interactive way for you to quickly get to know everyone else, but then for the listeners to get to know them too.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone who hasn't yet listened to the warm-up, check that out because it gives you a bit of an insight to Lachy's journey and quick-fire questions, and now we'll unpack it in a little bit more. But, mate, for context, obviously we met on my run around Australia. I know that you'd been trying to message me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Which you've told me since, and unfortunately I just didn't see it. It was too buckled when I was running.
Yeah, you're just too busy, mate. One of those influencers hasn't got time for his fans.
Absolutely not. No. But then, how it all turned out, I guess, is my partner Chloe, she covered your story when you became the fastest known person to run from Brisbane to Sydney, breaking the FKT, which is pretty cool. And then obviously, another young guy with a similar journey of transformation and wanting to impact, and worlds collided where ultimately I was a crew member short and you jumped in. Yeah,
it was so interesting. I remember my coach, Matty, he went out and run with you for a little bit when you were heading towards Sydney. And then, I was watching you, and then I start my run and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And then I finished it and then you still have so far to go. And then it just worked out that obviously I couldn't work. I used to be a concreter, so very hard yakka on your body. I had a lot of annual leave saved up, so perfect time to take it. And then I was just sitting there and somebody just said, just reach out, see if they need crew. I didn't know because I hadn't spoken to Chloe about it, but I said, if there's a chance you're on the road for so long, you might. And then, it all, the planets aligned. And if I'm being truthful, I don't know if I was going on it for the most perfect intentions. I think there was part of me that just wanted to keep that ball rolling, get straight back on the horse. But it was the best thing I ever had done. For me at that period, I was really just chasing that next thing, trying to get back to that similar high. And where my body was at, I didn't know it was going to take me so long to recover. I was so far away from what I perceived I needed to be. But going on that run and helping you just really changed my perception and helped me to remember, when I first put on the shoes, I didn't do it to try and inspire a generation of people. I didn't do it to this savior complex. I just wanted to be better. And that was something that you really helped me to, I guess, re-see the fact that ultimately, yes, it's great to do these things. It's great to inspire people and raise money for charity, but that has to be the subtext. The main reason is that you want to be better. Otherwise, you can really quickly get lost in it. And then after some of these things, you can go into a really big hole.
So true. I think it was around Norseman where you jumped in. So I'd reached Coolgardie. You flew into Kalgoorlie. And then
Perth and then back. So I flew
Perth
Cal, and then picked up the car and then drove 7 hours back the other way.
Yeah. So you had to drive from Kalgoorlie and then South Norseman. Must have been further than Norseman then.
Eucla?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, on the Nullarbor, which was really cool. And I remember you jumped in, came for a run with me, and we were just like, how unreal is it that Phil Gore is out here? And I remember us talking about how we both, fanboyed Phil for some time, watched his YouTubes. And I remember you said to me, you're like, I've been watching Phil for years and this and that. And I said, mate, I want you to tell him because you know, and I know Phil's not in it for recognition, notoriety like us. He truly wants to be better, and he's trying to, you know, get the best out of himself. And it's a byproduct that he's inspiring people along the way. But he's just doing his thing. But I was like, in what other sport are you the best in the world, or, you know, the best in a nation, and not really getting like your name out there, or people don't know who you are? And I was like, if Phil's truly had that impact, tell him. And I think that was pretty cool that you went up and did.
Yeah, it was cool. I guess like sometimes, you know, you get a little bit overawed, and some people, I know a lot of us are good at sort of giving compliments, not really great at receiving it. So I was just a bit nervous about how he would take it, but he was great. And he was just a really normal guy. Like, you know, he's a fiery, loves his kids, loves his wife, and loves obviously training. But we just had a lot of really normal chats, and even if you have achieved something like this, you still look at people who achieve those really massive highs, and you have this superhuman abilities or attachments to them, and then they're just all normal people at the end of the day who just believe in themselves or believe in their why great enough to go out and do great things. They're not necessarily extraordinary people when they're born, but it's extra effort here, extra effort here, extra effort here, and then suddenly your ordinary person becomes extraordinary. And yeah, going from sitting in my bed watching YouTube videos of Philbo to then asking him to pass me the butter and sharing bags of M&Ms with him.
He had a few M&Ms, didn't he?
Oh, I mean, that and Crispix. We would go to the shops and we'd have 10 boxes of Crispix. Like, I think we need some. I'm like, man, I really think we don't. But yeah, it's on you. But it's cool. And the fact that he just wanted to be out there, and he was there for, it's supposed to be a few weeks, and then he ended up being there for 7, just kind of shows the character of the guy, like the stature in the running community. And then he was there because you needed longer help, and he just stayed. And pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it was, man. It was just insane how it all happened. Like, you know, I hadn't met you. I hadn't met Phil before the run, and I hadn't met Mally. And then when you jumped in, it was the 3 of you supporting me. And I was just like, this is insane that, you know, I felt like at that point too, I was extremely buckled, fair to say. And it was really hard. Sort of once I hit Perth and was heading home, my body was breaking down, and it was day 125 between Perth and Kalgoorlie was the first day I didn't hit 80Ks. And I just, was really struggling, and to have, you know, such caliber of people. Like I love all of my crew, and I had incredible support crew the whole way around. But the fact that you boys were ultra runners and just knew what to do at a time where I was having days that were taking an hour and a half to 2 hours longer for less Ks, it was huge for me.
Yeah, I think the interesting part is we just all had different knowledge. Like we were all ultra runners, but we all had different ways to go about it, like Mally, Phil and I. So I think that just really helped in that we didn't all know everything, but we all had different things that we did know. So we were able to implement them, whether it was Philbo and his snack packs or things like that. But we were able to help you in our own unique way, whether that was just a bit of humor, which I think that was massive for, like, it's such a stressful time and there's so much going on, especially for yourself. So times when you're able just to crack a joke, I know for myself how much that helped me. So I kind of took it upon myself to be the jester when I could.
What were some of the best jokes on your journey of the FKT?
I can't even realize my mental, like my cognitive load was my bandwidth was pretty low. But like I had 2 of my really close mates there. One of my mates, Ash, he sort of had to be like the strict one at times, the one sort of pushing me out of the van. And my other mate, Jack, he just knows how to make me laugh in any circumstance. So all those people there, they'd never crewed. Well, Mum had done some crewing, but they weren't really ultra runners, but they all knew me enough and they only had to do their job. So having people that know you and can just make you laugh really helped me when I was, just battling and I was, doing a Lachy shuffle.
Mate, it's huge. Like the laughs that you boys gave me was pretty funny. I think Mally dressing up in the horse costume.
That was so funny.
That was a world record breaking day. That was day 159. And I remember just like thinking I've still got over a marathon to go. This is tough. And I was obviously riding the highs and lows all day, every day. Was feeling nauseous almost every day. And that just changed everything for me. So it was pretty cool. And those little things that you can do when you're crewing someone make the world of difference. So for anyone crewing their mate, make them laugh.
Bring a horse costume or the banana costume.
Yeah, there were a few. Mate, we won't spend too much time on the run itself, but what was your favourite thing of the run around Australia, that just being there and crewing with these great blokes, and also, so favourite thing and probably the biggest challenge associated to it as well?
Favorite thing was just the forced time away from society, from people, and sort of forced time away from your phone. There's a lot of time where we just had no service and we had the Starlink, but you just sort of were able to detach a little bit from this thing that you freak out if it's not in your hand. And then just getting back to nature and seeing the Nullarbor 8 kilometres at a time was such a unique way to view it. Like, most people would drive massive stretches and they'd have X points they're trying to get to here and there. 8Ks at a time, you just see so much of it, which is really amazing. And probably the most beautiful part for me was the bite. The bite was, when we were running 50, 60 metres maybe from the edge of Australia.
Yeah.
That was some of the most breathtaking scenery I've ever seen. But yeah, just the ability and just the understanding that you can detach from this thing. I think we are all now really glued to our phones, and I think it's really negative for our mental health. And that really helped me to understand that we can really detach from it and appreciate this beautiful world that we live in.
Yeah, love that. And biggest challenge with the run?
I mean, just making sure that at the start, I was trying to understand crewing as well. So just making sure that, I was doing the best I could for you. I think the most enjoyable part about crewing, and you won't really understand it until you do it, is that we live in a society where a lot of us really seek purpose and generally don't get it. We have our 9-to-5 jobs or whatever it is, and you don't necessarily lead a purpose-filled life. It just doesn't always work out that way. Whereas when you're crewing for something like that and someone's out trying to raise money doing this massive thing, anything we do for you when you're running around Oz, making you a toasted cheese sandwich, it is the most important thing I'm doing that day, and that little thing is helping you. So just making sure we're on the ball, and anytime if I forgot something or missed something, you'd really take that to heart. So that was the balance, but it just gave you so much purpose in anything you did, making sure that these X's and crossing your T's, dotting your I's was helping you do what you were doing.
Because massive days, like, that were big days for me, particularly as I said before, coming across the Nullarbor, close to 14-hour days of running. That means for crew, you're up earlier than I am, you're going to bed later than I am. Like, how did you manage all of that?
Yeah, at the start, I wasn't managing it very well, and then I had to start, because after, I think, a week and a half, I was cooked. So you just got to manage, because, obviously we were up early in the year to make sure everything's ready to go, get you out the door, and then at night time, like, Mally would go back, generally he would cook, and then we would feed you and then try and do the dishes, wash up. We would have maybe a beer or something, have a chuckle, then get to bed. But you're running off sometimes 4 or 5 hours sleep, and that'll catch up to you if you can't find some time to nap throughout the day. So in between, we would just make sure that someone was around to be doing what we needed to do, and if you needed to nap, so we just coordinate that. So once I started doing that, that really helped. But there was a period there I was like, fuck, I'm cooked here.
I bet.
And then I've got to drive. So working in those little naps really helped.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't realise at the time, I've got Freiberg's disease in my foot. I've got a cracked plantar plate. I've got and Morton's neuroma, some nerve thickening, and Locke's out there just helping me just tape it up every morning.
Yeah. So you asked me, like, do you know how to do that? And in my head, I was like, no. So then I said, yeah, man. Yeah, of course I do. So then I'm there strapping it up, and I was like, look, man, like, can you be, in my head, I was like, can I be making this worse? I was like, no, probably not. So I know that the placebo effect, that if you believe it's going to help, it's probably going to help enough. They're like, yeah, this is worth doing it. But I'm there just like throwing tape on, going like, fuck, I don't know. Yeah.
It was so powerful. Like, I mean, I'm laying there. It's like 4:45 in the morning, and you're taping my foot. I'm still like trying to sleep at that time. You're like, righto, get up. You're on the road in 45 minutes or whatever it was. So, I love that the most about ultra running. It truly is just problem solving, and we were just winging it. I certainly couldn't afford a physio or a podiatrist there the whole time, and boys just had a crack.
Yeah, red or crack, just head first into podiatry.
Pretty cool. Well, mate, obviously I've spoken a little bit about the FKT, but I want to start a bit further back than that, because you certainly don't just get to the point of saying I'm going to run from Brisbane to Sydney and then not only saying it but executing that. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing. Were you always a runner? How did this ultimately come into fruition?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start right at the start. I grew up in Camden, which is a small town in Western Sydney, and I had a great upbringing. Like, I had 2 loving parents, but like a lot of us, my parents separated. And the part that I struggled with was that my biological dad, he just slowly just stopped being there for me. And then, the life that he led, like, he got himself into bad situations. He ended up abusing drugs and alcohol, going to jail. He had a very bad life. I don't begrudge him for that. That's his life. I begrudge him for the fact that he stopped turning up for me, and his actions led me to believe that I wasn't good enough. Because as a child, when a parent consistently tells you they're going to turn up and you don't think rationally, you assume that you're at fault. There's something that is wrong with you, or there's something that you're not able to give. And that's why for so many years I begrudged him, because he made me believe I wasn't good enough. So when you have that at a young age, it's hard to navigate that. So rationally, you try and think that I need to be liked by everyone. Like if he doesn't like me, then I need to make sure everyone else does like me. So how I was able to do that was I would just change myself. So I would change myself to be what you needed me to be, and what Mally and what Phil and what everyone else needed me to be, just slightly. But again, you're reinforcing to yourself you're not good enough. So even though you're making people laugh and it seems fine because everyone thinks you're this happy person, every time I change myself, I'm internally reinforcing that I'm not good enough.
Of course, yeah.
So you do that for long enough, and then you've just filled yourself with a lot of holes, and then you get to 15, 16, 17 in Australia, and someone hands you a drink and you go, oh, that's pretty good, because it's just this warm hug that fills you, and it starts to patch up some of these gunshot wounds, but it's just a Band-Aid, and it's going to get infected in the future. But I didn't realize that at the time. And then the problem was I lacked identity because I changed who I was. I didn't really know who I was. And being the person who's drunk and then on drugs and the loosest person at a party, that's an identity in itself. And it's really glorified in Australia. And then that became my identity. And then this thing that you're doing that's your identity makes you feel worse about yourself, but you need to do it because you have an identity. And it's just this like spiral of nothingness, because you just go down to the abyss.
How hard was that then? Say it's a Sunday morning and you have to deal with the consequences of trying to be this person in order to please other people and ultimately feel like you've got an identity. And then come Sunday, when obviously the effects of a big night hit you, like how do you process it at that point?
It was hard because I knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
And that was, I think so many people with addiction or whatever that they're battling, they know it's wrong. And then you sit there like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And the thing is that you get so caught up with what you're doing being a problem, when it's not a problem, it's a solution to a problem. And that's the part I couldn't understand. I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, why am I fucking doing this? I know it's wrong, but it's the solution to the problem of I don't believe in myself and I need everyone to like me. And I didn't understand that for so long.
How did you unpack that?
I didn't until I changed myself and I looked back and reflected. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But like, it wasn't until I went all the way to the bottom that I then started to try and be better. And then it's once I came back up, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
For sure. I mean, obviously so much of our life is shaped by our upbringing. How old were you when your parents did break up?
3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then we still had a decent relationship. And it was only as I started getting older that he would just then, not turn up for me, would say he's going to turn up, and you're waiting in the gutter in the cold for your dad to turn up in a restaurant. That's something you just never forget. And like I said, I don't begrudge his actions because it's his life, but doing that to me at a young age, it just made me believe that I wasn't good enough. And it's something that I think a lot of kids could be infected by, and it's really hard to eradicate yourself from.
It's something that, like, my parents split when I was 11, and I've got some memories from obviously their time together and then time beyond that. But certainly 3-4 years old, like that's hard even to hear. And I haven't lived that like you. So no doubt you can see how society's role would have ultimately shaped you to, you need to feel that validation and love, and you're getting that by changing your character in different rooms.
Yeah, it's like I was very fortunate that I had my stepdad Mick came in when I was young, I think 5, when he came into my life, and he's been a great role model and he's been a great man. He's just taught me hard work ethics. He could definitely talk about his emotions a bit more, he'd be better at that, but he's just a great man. I'm so fortunate. But the thing is, my mum and my stepdad and my dad, they gave me so much. However, they could never heal the trauma that they didn't cause.
Of course.
I think that's something that my mum battled with for a while, because especially when she first found out about how I was struggling so much, and she's like, oh, but I've given you this upbringing, I've tried it, and she's tried to give me the best of my whole life, and she has. However, she didn't cause this pain, so she can't fix it. And I think that was something that probably took us all a while to realize why I was going through all this.
Yeah, I know your mum has been an enormous part of your life, and you talk so highly of her. I met her for the first time just recently at Sydney Backyard Ultra, and she was crewing you, obviously your stepdad as well, your family, which was pretty amazing, mate. What sort of impact has your mum had?
Yeah, massive. Like, it's only on reflection, it's hard to even wrap my head around. Like, she had 2 kids in their teens, in her 30s, and I'm 29 and can barely look after myself. So I never, when I was younger, like thought about the fact that, my parents my friends, their parents are in their 40s. My mum's in her early 30s. I never really like noted it. But to think what she would have had to go through, like having 2 kids by the time she was 20, there would have been a lot of people back then just telling her she would never achieve anything. And then now she has forged her path and she's very successful working in real estate. And she just would have had to do that the hard way. She would have had to take her own version of a long run into that. And it's just cool. It's cool to see that, I always just looked at her as my mum and she'll always be that. But how she's been able to, in a short period of time, getting back into real estate, climb the corporate ranks is just proof that hard work will always pay off.
Yeah, just grit. I mean, she must have been like so proud of you in being there for the FKT and being able to see what you've been through and where you were at to ultimately get to that point. What was it like having her on the run?
Yeah, having my mum and my dad there was really cool because like they've always been super proud of me, but I, for a long period of time, was never proud of myself. Like you're always going to be proud of your kid, but they don't know the true extent of what I'm doing all the time. So yes, I maybe am a good person at heart. I was doing a lot of things that a good person wouldn't do. So it was nice for me to see them there and to see me just in my own glory and finally being the son that they really deserved. So that was cool. Like I just finally feel like now I'm that person that they have always been proud of. So I don't know if that, like maybe they're probably a little bit more proud, but I don't know if that's necessarily changed. I think just now that I'm living up to that expectation.
Was there a moment, obviously you just mentioned that they were with you on the run, was there a moment that stands out in that time together?
Yeah, a few different funny moments, but like my mum's birthday last year was on Mother's Day and there was a moment where we're running down the highway. I think it was like 2-3 o'clock, so the sun's low and we were all singing Life is a Highway together, and you can't put a price on that. That's a MasterCard moment right there. You can't ever take that away from us, and that's just this really cool moment that we've shared together, going from moments that we've had together which have all been very dark to then having that, like, yeah, that's the whole FKT is worth it just for that moment.
Absolutely, mate. It's so special you achieved that. So you knock over the FKT, but obviously it doesn't start there. You got into running at some point along this journey. Where did running come into the picture for you?
I played rugby for a long period, rugby league and then rugby, but I hated long distance running purely because like I was the kid at cross country that would walk and just say, this is bullshit, like why are they making you do this? It's child abuse. Hated it because I wasn't mentally equipped to deal with, because you just start that this sucks, and I wasn't mentally equipped to deal with it, so I hated it. Whenever we had to run at training, I hated doing laps, never enjoyed it. It wasn't until sort of 2021, I was just starting to get a little bit skinny fat. I was really out of shape. I was drinking very heavily every day, doing like large amounts of drugs on the weekend. And I just wanted to try and do something. I couldn't go to the gym because of COVID, so I just started running whatever I could around the block. It was very short. And then that end of 2021, like November 2021, my partner and I, we'd been together for 7 years. We quite abruptly split up. So that was a lot to take. And I then was able to, with all my new spare time, I just focused in on running, which is still interesting to me to understand why in that moment I decided I could be a little bit better, because for so long I probably told myself that I couldn't. But I'm just fortunate that I kept putting on the shoes, because from that moment, there's just been exponential growth.
It's just that compounding improvement, like day after day, showing up for yourself, as you say. And it's ultimately led you to this point, which is cool. I mean, so you don't know why was running when you've had hardship in your life. Have you turned to running in the past before, or no, that was really the first of it?
Yeah, it was November 2021 is when first I put on the shoes and was doing a few laps. And I posted on my Instagram, the third ever time I ran 5K took me 55 minutes. And I don't know if we have any keen runners watching the podcast, but that is a shithouse 5K time. There's a lot of walking.
That is slower than me across the Nullarbor.
Yeah, if I'm losing to you across the Nullarbor when you were clapped out, that shows how slow it was. I don't know if I was throwing up as much. I did throw up, but it was a lot of walking. Just couldn't do it. And that was the third time ever. So people that look at the progression I've had and just think, oh, he must have been great from the start. Like, no, I was shit house. Like, it was a battle just to get 5Ks out, and it sometimes was that slow. But I just stuck to it. I think I was fortunate that COVID happened. Otherwise, I probably would have just gone to the gym, and I really enjoy the gym now. But I think I love the fact that it was running, just because running will always be inherently difficult. It doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. It's always going to be difficult, and that's kind of why I enjoy it.
Yeah, it is. It is like that. I mean, obviously you get fitter, you get faster, you get stronger, but your times get quicker, and then ultimately, like, you've still got that same challenge within yourself, which is really cool. One thing I do find interesting though is you can, like focus on a certain format, let's say, for example, Filbo with the backyards. And there's obviously so much discomfort in running, which is what draws both of us into that. But you can find comfort within running because running is your thing. And it's one of the things that I'm having to really push myself outside of my comfort zone now in sticking to doing some swimming because I swim like a brick. So, you know, being consistent with that and I want to one day do a triathlon, do an Ironman. And, you know, we all need levels of accountability. And that's what I love is that right now I've got no excuse to not be pursuing that because I'm injured and I can't run, but I can cycle and I can swim.
Just not very well.
No, not very well at all. But do you think that, like, in your journey, have you found that even though there's obviously a lot of discomfort within running, there is an element of comfort there because it is running itself? And that's why, for example, with your challenge, which obviously you mentioned last week on the warm-up, the challenge to come, it's exciting because there's different components to that. Is that something that you feel as well?
I'm excited by that challenge just because it's going to be so inherently difficult. As I said in the warm-up, I don't like fast running.
Yeah. So for anyone who didn't hear the warm-up yet, what is the challenge that you've set for yourself?
I want to be, and I'm pretty sure I've looked around, the first person to ever join the 555 club, which would be deadlift 500 pounds, run a sub 5 mile, and then run 50 miles all in the space of 24 hours. So there's strength, speed, and endurance all in the space of 24 hours. But you know, I enjoy the gym, but I'm not overly strong. So there's a lot of work to do there, which is be hard. I love running. I don't love fast running all that much. So getting to be able to run a sub 5 mile, that's going to be difficult. And then, you know, I love long running, but running 50 miles after those two things is going to be cooked in and of itself. But for me, the part I love most about this challenge is that I think I've gone off a little bit with Instagram and that I think I was maybe just doing it too much for other people. And this challenge especially, I can just go back and just do all this for myself again and just really go back and just put all the work into the gym. And there's no races, there's no fanfare, there's no anything in the warm up to this or there's the prep for it. There's just me working alone, which is what I'm kind of most excited for about it. And I think I lost sight of that a little bit when I had this goal, which I kind of you need to push it. You need people to see it if you're trying to raise money for charity.
Of course,
but
yeah.
it's not why I want to be better, and it never was. So I think that's why I'm so interested in doing this.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that like ultimately your purpose needs to be as part of your day-to-day. You can't do these crazy challenges all the time, right? And I know that when you did your FKT from Brisbane to Sydney, you were supporting Heart on My Sleeve, mental health organisation. And then now day-to-day you're working with Life Changer, which is pretty special as well because you're getting to live that. You know, for me, a big part of what I do is about, you know, pushing my limits, chasing my dreams, and ultimately I get to do that in my work as a running coach, helping other people achieve their running goals, their dreams within running, as well as a speaker, you know, being out there and inspiring people to chase their personal and professional goals. Tell us a little bit about the day-to-day work you're doing now with Life Changer, because I know that of your journey, mental health is huge. It's been a huge part, and I want to talk more about, you know, some of the really dark times in there as well, because I think that perspective is going to be important for people. But why Life Changer, and how's it all going?
Yeah, Life Changer has been fascinating, and it's been like this breath of fresh air into my life, and it's not where I thought I would go into, being completely transparent. I thought I'd be best suited working in mental health space of people probably similar to my age, because whenever I've felt like I've had the most traction is talking to people similar to me, and it's the relatability is high. So I never would have probably looked at anything like youth mental health specifically, but the founder of Heart on My Sleeve, Mitch Wallace, he had a connection working in Life Changer, and he just reached out and he said, just give this a go, look at it. And I was a bit cautious at first because I'm like, oh, I'm not a teacher. Or I'm that guy with the hat backwards. Hey, kids, let's better ourselves. But it's just been, like I said, this breath of fresh air in my life, and going in there and at, you know, Life Changer, we know and we believe that everyone in that classroom, they're the future. But we hope to empower them to see that they can be the best versions of themselves and they can create and write whatever their own future to be. And the thought of, even if it's one kid in every single classroom, if you proactively make a difference in their life, so if you've hopefully made a difference in the future, then maybe those kids don't make those same mistakes that I did. And it's not sitting there telling them what to do. That's why I like it. It's not just my life story and this is where you need to go run 100 Ks. It's not about that. We try and give them the framework to make the correct decisions themselves, because ultimately that's when they're going to have that aha moment, when they believe that if I'm speaking at them, or whatever, just some old dude. But if we, through our workshop, our interactive workshops, give them this framework and they have their own aha moment, that's where they're going to grab onto some of these bits of knowledge that we were telling them. And maybe it's in 5 years' time. Like, it doesn't have to be, we're not trying to fix this crescendo moment. It's a stepping stone. And hopefully what we've given them is a stepping stone for them to create their own future. And that's why I love it. Like, you literally add there every day, hopefully making a difference in the future.
I love that, mate. I mean, we all need to make a living, and ultimately you've sacrificed your former work in being a concreter to now do this life changer work, because it's bringing more purpose to your days and it's also helping create a bigger impact. That's pretty cool when you think about it. Like, if you just look surface level, like, you're choosing this as the option over the former, because it is truly that impact. It must mean a lot to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've only cried once after the run. But the first day I had a life change, my first official day, because I worked there as a mentor for a little bit, just volunteering, I cried because I was about to leave, and I just sat and just thought about like where my life was, like how, the depths of despair I'd been in with mental health, and now I've literally quit I put 13 years into my past career. Like, I set myself up for, it was always hard. I did enjoy it, and I had great guides that I work with, and it was a really hard decision. But I'm now working and hopefully making a difference in the future, and it's crazy to think like the tangent, the y-axis that's happened in my life. And I was just really proud of that. Like, the training, I believe I'm doing all this stuff for myself. So I struggle with everyone being proud of me for it, because I'm just proud of myself for it. Yeah. But it's cool to see people proud of me that I've made this decision. Hopefully I'm helping others. And it's something that it's really easy to want to get out of bed every day to do it.
To give people a bit more of an understanding on what a day at Life Changer looks like, or even just, one of the actions or one of the things that you have to talk about, is there a moment that stands out in the work that you've done?
We have different activities that we run. Like, one activity that I think is really interactive and fun is just with Year 5 students. And I think our social interactions, whether at child levels or whether at adult levels, is very low. And we have one activity which is just called Life Changer Bingo. And that's where a lot of activities we try and play on our natural competitive nature. And the kids are just trying to fill out the bingo card first. But the bingo card is just full of questions about the people in their class. So they have to go around and ask them who owns a red bike, or sometimes little personal questions, but it's just getting to know people. And because of the competitive nature, they do it. And then we just ask them how it felt to talk to people that they didn't know. And they say, it's a bit weird, but how was it learning stuff about them? And they generally say it was good. And it's just helping at a young age to sort of reboot our social interactive skills, which I'd say are pretty low. So I think that's just a really cool initiative. And we have so many different activities we do, but starting that at a Year 5 level, I think is great. And then a moment that really sticks out for me was we were at Barker College, and a young girl came up after one of our workshops, and she just asked me if I could help her with something. And she just said that she really struggles with rejection. And I said, yeah, we can try and work on that. I just challenge you, what part of rejection is so hard for you? And she just wasn't sure, which is fair enough. She was only young. And I said, look, if you were anything like me, not necessarily people saying no, it's that when someone says no, I can't hang out, or when you ask them to do something, you don't hear no, you hear I'm not good enough, or you're not worth my time. I said, are you any similar to me? That's what I used to hear. And her eyes sort of welled up, and she nodded. And I just said to her that, look, I know you're worth it, and I believe in you, and I know that's not the case, but you just need to believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself and put in the work with yourself, you'll know that that's not what people are saying. People are allowed to be busy.
Of course.
When someone says no, maybe they're just doing something. But when you know and you have validated yourself, when people say no to you, you don't hear that kind of rejection. And she left that conversation with a big smile on her face, and that was a cool moment.
That's so beautiful, mate. I think that you would have definitely had a huge impact on her, and really, I'm sure, changed how she thinks about rejection going forward now, which is huge. Obviously, rejection, you mentioned, was a big part of your upbringing, your biological father, and the impact of that. Do you want to be a dad one day?
Yeah, it's, when I was younger, that was my biggest goal, is I wanted to be a tradie like my dad, Mick, and I wanted to be a dad. And that was my main goal in life. And then when me and my partner got together, we were together for a very long period of time, I thought that my KPIs, where I wanted to get to, have a successful job, have a wife, have kids, was all very close to me. And then when we split up and I'm 25, I'm back living at home with my parents, like that goal is very far away, and I was able to pivot. That's still my goal though. Like one day I know I'll be a great dad, but you know, it's not where I'm at right now, right?
Course,
I can't,
yeah.
it's not something I can just go to Coles and just grab that off the shelf.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't want it, but it's just not where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I mean, can you talk to girls yet, or?
I'm pretty good at a Rubik's Cube. Is that what you mean? Or one-handed, like I said. What was the question, sorry?
One of the things that we've been doing a lot since the run and I moved to Sydney is, we've had these morning gym sessions followed by a coffee, followed by a swim. And I reckon every time we catch up, you say to me, I just can't talk to a girl yet.
Yeah, one day.
One day.
One day.
One day. But yeah, when that day does come, what sort of dad do you want to be?
I think just understanding, I have a better concept now that you don't have to be a superhero. Like the main part is you just have to be there. I think that's something that I've really taken away. Like my parents have given me so much, but just being there and being present. I think it's very hard these days, or it's very easy these days, I should say, to not be present, to have so much stuff going on in your mind. But whenever I'm there in that situation with my partner, with my kids, I hope to just be as present as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've no doubt you will be, mate. You're a very present guy. You've obviously done a heap of work on yourself, so it's a credit to you. Tell me about some of the really hard times, like ultimately where that level of rejection led you to.
Yeah, like I think I battled with my mental health when I was younger, but I never really understood it. But drugs and alcohol really extrapolate that, and that it just leads you down a really bad path. But my fix for it was more drugs and alcohol, and it just gets you to a point where your bandwidth a lot of time is pretty low, and you just start having this thought of like, oh, this is just really hard, and especially when you kind of don't see a way out, like your tunnel starts to close up, and then that light sort of goes. But I had my partner, and I really lent on her for my own self-worth because I didn't believe in myself. So it was easy to sort of sometimes forget about all the negative things I was doing because I had that thing to lean on, being, oh, I have that, so my life must be okay. But those Sundays where you'd be horrendously hungover and scat, and you'd be just, like I said, hating on yourself but not understanding that this problem was actually a solution, and not understanding that, it just led you to a point where you detested yourself most of the time, but you didn't know who you were unless you were on drugs and alcohol. So it was a really hard spiral. But then, you just start having these voices in your head saying that, we don't want to do this anymore. Like, we can't really be here anymore. And I battled with that for a while, but I'd sort of kept it to myself. But then, when you start having really like a lot of thoughts about self-harming yourself, that's when you need to do something. And my stepdad was able to take me, I started seeing a psychologist, and that was helpful. But I don't think I was really still in the mindset of wanting to better myself. I did that because I was kind of supposed to. And it's so interesting to me, the subjective nature, in that, like, rock bottom should generally be the same, but it's so different for all of us. And I had so many moments which people would consider rock bottom. Like, there was one night where I had people take me to hospital because I was going to take my own life, and at 2:00 in the morning, my parents had to come in and see me in a completely white room, and they'd taken all my things off me and my shoelaces so I couldn't harm myself. Like, to anyone, that's rock bottom. But I think a few weeks later, I was back on a weekend out cooked. Like, that's the fascinating part for me, that wasn't my rock bottom, but I think it's because I had these things to lean on to find some shred of self-worth, being my partner. And it wasn't until we split up and she dumped me in 2021, like end of 2021, that I just finally had nothing else to lean on. There was nothing else to give me this shred of self-worth, and I had to finally look myself in the mirror and say, okay, like, this is what you wanted. We had saved $80,000. We were about to buy a house. I'd saved $10,000. I was about to buy an engagement ring. Like, the perception of this life was there within grasp. And then when we split up, I was 25, back living at home with my parents. I'm very far away from that. And I've just finally had to look myself in the mirror and say, like, these things that helped you or propped you up, they're not there anymore. And you need to really have a look at yourself and look at where your life's going. Are you happy with that? You've told yourself you're a good person for so long, but really have a look what's left now. Is that it? Is that good? And it wasn't in like one moment where I decided that I was going to be better. I just was able to put a bit more time into running because I obviously had a lot more time on my hands.
Would you say that was the first time in your life then you really had that honest conversation with yourself?
No, it's just the first time I listened.
Yeah, okay.
I'd had it a lot.
Yeah.
You have it.
You have it every day.
At my parents' house, I have sliding wardrobe doors and they're glass. And on Sunday afternoons, bro, there was some hectic chats with yourself. Like,
I can imagine, yeah.
Grim. But it's not the first time that I'd listened.
What do you think it was that made you listen at that point? Had you come across anyone or anything that had given you hope?
No, wasn't watching David Goggins or like that. Like, no.
Because it sounds like the accountability mirror in a sense of what obviously David Goggins talks a lot about. You hadn't discovered him at that point. You hadn't really, it was all within.
Yeah, which I think it's the best way
100%.
To move forward in life. Yeah, it is great to have these people, but as I spoke about before, is be your own inspiration. I think I just didn't have any other option. And I think I know now, especially where my life's at, I do my best when I actually don't have any other options. If you give me options and give me time around stuff, I fuck around and I doom scroll and do stuff. If this is what I have to do and I've just got to go get it done, I'll get it done. So, yeah, I've thought about it a lot and I don't know. I don't know the reason why I decided or had some belief that I could be better that day, but I'm fucking fortunate that it happened because I'd very easily, like, you go forward 10 years, I'd be that guy at the pub, the 40-year-old guy who's pissed his life away, talked about what could have been.
Yeah.
That was very close for me.
It's amazing, mate. It's amazing. So from that point, you then put on the runners for the first time. You run that buckled 55-minute 5K. That was your third run, you said.
Yeah.
How does the idea of the FKT even enter your mind? And how long was it from sort of starting running to then being like, no, I'm going to train with purpose. I'm going to find mentors, coaches. How long was the time frame within that?
So November 2021 was when I put the shoes on. And then I think it was May 2022, I did the Sydney Morning Herald half. So I'd built up to, I hadn't run a half by that point, but I'd run maybe 15 Ks.
Yeah.
I did that half and then was just running a bit more throughout the year and then decided to sign up for the Sydney Marathon, which was in November. Did that and then signed up for the Melbourne Marathon, which was 2 weeks later. Did that and then decided that, well, I've done that. So then I signed up for a 50K in the Gold Coast. That was one I spoke about.
The GC50.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst race.
Yeah. So did that. And then I was like, well, you've run 50Ks, just run 100, which it's so funny to look back to. But I was like, that just makes sense. So it was January 2023 that I ran 100K. So from starting in November 2021 to that. And that was still no coach. So I was just running a lot of Ks. My cadence was terrible. My gait was probably horrendous. I didn't strength train. So there was not a lot of framework. And I think it was around that year that I started going to the running room. And then I think it was maybe February, March that year that Harry from the running room, I was working with him. And then he suggested that I speak to Maddie. And I think it was maybe April of 2023 that I've probably got a coach.
So it was almost 12 months from working with Maddie to then taking on the FKT.
Yeah.
That's huge, mate.
It was after I run that 100K that I had this belief now, I can do so much more than I ever thought. Like that 100K tested me so much more than anything else because it was twice as far as I'd ever run. But it just instilled this belief that I wanted to try and do something. And then that was around the time of Ned Brockman, and I just thought I can try and raise money for mental health, something that means so much to me. And I didn't really understand what the challenge was that really lied ahead of me. I think it was just a nice idea, but that 12 months together working with Maddie was why I was able to achieve what I did.
It's huge. I remember one of these days I spoke about before, we were having a gym session, coffee, swim there at Manly Beach. You sort of told me a lot more about your journey, and it was actually meeting Ned and coming up or hearing his goal to run across the country. Was that really like a point, and then seeing him execute that where it was like, you know what, if he's gone and done this, I can do this too?
Yeah, I was seeing a girl for a little bit, and she goes, "Oh, you're really into running. Do you want to meet a friend of mine? He does a bit of running." And then we were at his house having lunch, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna run from Perth to Bondi," and I was just sitting there eating a chicken schnitzel sandwich. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, you're not, but yeah, good on you. Like that's cool. Like because he was 23 at the time. He'd been running for a little bit longer than me, but very similar, not that long. So I was like, oh, that's great. You're not going to do it, but that's great.
Did you say that? You're not going to?
No. In my head, like I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. But in my head, I'm like, there's no way you're going to do
Of course,
it.
yeah.
And then I was following him. I was just waiting for every day for it to say, oh, can't do it. It's too hard, and just never happened. Like things that came along the way, which made it very difficult, but he just grit down in the mouth guard and finished it. And that's where I was like, oh, whoa, like my perception of what we can do really changed seeing that. And I just sort of realized it really just comes down to how big your why is and how much work you want to put in and really taking ownership of that. And seeing someone else do it, helped me to believe in myself a bit more.
Well, I love that you said there, it gave you the belief of how much work you can put in. Because I think too many people, like a mistake that I'm constantly seeing, particularly on social media, is people, taking on these massive challenges when they're just fundamentally not ready. Like they haven't given themselves enough time to be able to prepare for the goal. And I think that it is a quick turnaround, to be honest, from when you're starting running to then, within 3 years of putting on the shoes to becoming the fastest known time, which is pretty epic. But it also shows you, what's possible to come when you give yourself more time. And I think it's something that, some people may not know this, but when I announced the goal for the first time publicly that I would run around Australia, it was early 2018. So I've been on this journey for a long time. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I set the goal for 2021. And it was then later in 2018 where I met Coach Jace, and he said to me, look, it's all well and good to say you're going to run around Oz and you've picked your charity and you're going to do this and it's going to be 2021, but let's actually make it a real goal. So it was, how many Ks are you going to run per day? When in 2021 are you going to do it? And then COVID happened. It wasn't possible in 2021. Cairns to Melbourne run came the backstop in 2022 and almost like a rehearsal. And then ultimately 2024 was the run around Oz. I think without COVID, there's no way I could have ultimately run Cairns to Melbourne and then run around Oz. And at the time, I hated that I wasn't able to do it. But I obviously had the perspective, like there's a lot of people who've got it a lot worse in COVID to me not being able to run around Australia. It will come. The extra 3 years gave my body so much, and I can't wait to see where you can be 6 years into that journey. If you've done that, FKT 3 years into the journey, it's exciting. Obviously, you've got the goal that you shared before, but I'm sure there's going to be some big things to come, mate.
Yeah, I think definitely. It is so interesting to hear that framework and, that Alexander, the great Volkanovski, said it recently that adversity is a privilege, and I totally agree with that statement, but I think it's for me, there's a little preface in that you have to have the mindset to understand and seek out the opportunity in that adversity. If you don't, then you're just getting a bag of shit all the time and woe is me. Yes, adversity is a great privilege when you understand the opportunity that you can take from it, which you saw there. You could have said, oh, whatever, we'll have to do it a different way. But then you were able to have this trial run of it where you run from Cairns to Melbourne. There's so many takeaways where you were able to then push that towards your run around Oz. But that was you and your team understanding that moment of opportunity. There will be something else I'd love to do in the future. But like I said, for me now, I'm glad that I'm self-aware enough to know that I need to just go internal again. And I think you do the greatest work in the dark, and then you can shine the brightest in the light.
So true. Yeah. I think one of the things that Jace instilled in me early is that, you're going to have several events and markers, not even just races, but things that you need to achieve to even give yourself the belief that you can go out there and execute. And within 4 months of meeting him, I ran 50 marathons in 50 days as a 21-year-old. I did have a decent base underneath me, was doing 100K weeks at the time, running to uni like a maniac, but I didn't realize how much I still had to learn. And it's the greatest thing that people can take away is like, no matter what you know now, no matter what I know now, no matter what you know now, there is so much more to learn, and lean into that, because the second you think you know it already, you're in trouble.
you spoke before about having a shocking cadence, about rarely strength training. I mean, I was the exact same. My cadence was like low 150s or even high 140s. It was awful. Wondering why I was having
a big stride.
Yeah, wondering why I was having hip flexor issues, but just striding out and just thinking, I can do this. But it is physical, not mental. And I think that, like, of course, there's a mental side of these challenges and events, but biggest thing and biggest advice to people is give yourself time, because what you can achieve in that, if you're thinking years rather than months, is huge. We're seeing people take on these massive challenges with only 12 months of preparation. What's your thoughts on that? Like, as a running coach, I look at that and think, well, it's just objectively not long enough, and they're going to set themselves up for a result that, really they may not even be happy with.
Yeah, I think, like, looking at it retrospectively now, it is crazy that going from 3 years of nothing to achieving what I achieved. And I think there was a lot of naivety in even sort of setting the goal. But that period there was 18 months of maybe training, but 12 months specifically with a coach towards it. That 12 months was dialed in. There was nothing else in my life apart from that. All I ever did apart from go to work was train or prepping or for it. So that 12-month period was very intense. But I think a lot of people at the moment, like, it is great to see them doing these challenges. It's great to see people getting out, exercising, and wanting to be better. But I just struggle with the belief that people would be doing these things if social media didn't exist. And I think that there are ulterior motives, in my opinion, for a lot of people doing these things. And when you see people making these really outlandish claims and then getting nowhere near it, it's just like, if it meant that much to you, you would have put in the work. You would have put in the work required to have gotten close. And if you don't like break a record, whatever, it's not about that. But when you say something really outlandish and get nowhere near it, it kind of seems a little bit disrespectful to the people that have gone before you. But ultimately, you don't have to set these outlandish goals. You just have to go out and try and be better. And like I said, I'd struggle to believe that if social media wasn't around, anyone would be doing half of the things that they did.
Mate, well said. I think that it's so clear from your journey, even the little things, the fact that you never run with any music, podcast, anything. You're just out there trying to win the morning, and it's making you a better person. That's certainly not a part of your journey. It's why I believe you've been able to achieve this FKT, because if you're not running for the right reasons, there's no way you're going to be able to show up like that every single day and have a body that responds. Like, you need to love your training to put 3 years into something. You need to love your training to put 6 years into something. And I think that if people could give themselves some more time, like, give yourself a bigger runway, it's amazing what you can achieve. But too many people want to get there too quickly.
Yeah, I think you speak about this a lot when you say that people sort of overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. And, running, especially ultra running, is this thing where, time will always be your greatest ally. And the more time you put into your base training, the more time you put in anything, like, the greater you can succeed. And I'm hesitant to say anything because it's great seeing people get out and wanting to better themselves. But like I said, sometimes you just see it and you just question their motives is all I'd say.
Yeah, I think, like, it's important too that people understand that whenever you put yourself in the spotlight like this, there's rules around it. Like, an event can't be both public and private. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're doing something in the public eye, like, you want to run across a country or around a country or whatever it may be, it can't be both public and private. You're out there doing this thing, and ultimately you need to share what's going on because there has to be a level of transparency there. People have backed you, whether it be sponsors or whether it be people donating to your cause, to know that, you need to be out there and truly doing the right thing.
If social media didn't exist,
Yeah.
do you think that there would be the same influx of people, or not if social media didn't exist, if social media did still exist, but ultra running was 15 years ago, still back in the shadows, would anyone be doing these things? No. Because now there's spotlights on it. There's a way to get some notoriety. Running's the real fad at the moment. If ultra running, like I said, if you go back 15, 20 years and social media still existed, people wouldn't be doing those things. It's because there's a way to get famous or notoriety from it that there's now people trying to do these crazy things, in my opinion.
Cam Munro crewed me at the BVRT 200 miler, and then he crewed me from Townsville to Mount Isa. Was going to be all the way to Darwin on the run around Oz, but broke his foot during the run as a crew. I think he kicked the step getting into the motorhome. Sorry that happened, Cam. You're a great guy. But one of the things I love about Cam, just years and years of endurance and years of racing. And I know he struggles with it. He's mentioned to me, you know, like you turn up to a race now and there's people taking selfies and all that, which is great. You can inspire people to go and get it. But I think what's really important is that if you love this sport, you share the sport with other people. Both you can do a personal challenge. I've certainly done several of them, you know, the 50 and 50 Cairns to Melbourne run around Oz, and for charities that I believe in. But at the same time, you've got to toe the start line in races and get around other people, because, you know, we are all just out here working, doing the best we can day by day. Showing up and doing these races is what the sport is truly about.
Yeah. And I think it's something that I had to have my own sort of self-reflection with for a little bit at the moment, is that, are you doing this for internal or external validation? And the reason I had exponential growth is I was doing something like running, which is just inherently difficult, but I didn't have social media for a large period of my training when I started running. And that's where I was able to grow so much, because all of this hard work that I was doing, no one knew about it. And I didn't give a shit, and no one cared about the 5Ks or whatever I was doing. But I grew so much because I did all this stuff just for myself. And the question I had to ask myself at the moment, and then why I see so many people, and it's hard because they're out there exercising, but are you just doing this for kudos? Are you just doing this for an Instagram like? Because that, to me, is not sustainable, and you don't have the same amount of growth as you would just doing it for yourself. Like, there are people who can have the balance and they are simply posting for others. Like, you know, David Goggins goes out. I'm pretty sure he doesn't give a fuck what people think about him, but he posts because he tries to better people. And if you know you have that balance, and that's great. But that's where my sort of query is with all this sort of stuff now, with this influx of, you know, I guess at the moment, like, Strava was created for starter nerds and things like that, whereas now it's like fucking dating app, right? Like, people are out there giving kudos for, like, that's just kind of a bit discombobulated with it all. And I just struggle to see people having the same amount of growth they could if they're just doing it for themselves.
Yeah, so true. Well said. Mate, I want to go to social media now. I put up a poll and asked people to ask you some questions, and there's some questions here from the audience. So the first one is from Mitch. He says, if you could crew with a crew member who was on the run around Australia that you didn't get to crew with, who would it be?
I would love to see Cam break his foot. I mean, that would have been great to see. Sorry, Cam, about that. I'll give Mitch what he wants. It would have been cool to crew with Mitch. He sounds like he's a bit of a weird unit like myself. But yeah, I was so fortunate that I got to crew with Philbo, Mally, Andre, and, you know, Mally and his partner Em are really close friends of mine now.
Yeah, unreal. Another question from socials. Did crewing for Sean make you want to get after another FKT?
Yeah, throughout it definitely, especially running across the Nullarbor, it really made me want to one day run across Australia. But I think spending a little bit of time away from that as well has made me realise that I just kind of need to do my own internal work first. But yeah, one day I definitely will run across Australia.
Love that. I want to be part of that, mate, and crew you in return. Great question here. How did you overcome the initial head noise each morning on your FKT?
It's a good question, especially once you start, you know, really battling, which for me was quite early on. But I think that's just where you have to, if there's any doubts whatsoever, if there's any questions as to your resolve, that's where you're going to get found out, especially in the mornings, because it's tough. Like, your body's so rigid, as you would know. Trying to get moving is challenging for the first period. And I think that's just where you can have all the amazing training you want. And the amazing training will, in my opinion, help you break records. However, it's those moments of adversity, like Volk spoke about, those moments of privilege, in my opinion, that you learn so much from. Like, it was 9 months out from when I was going to set off from Brisbane and was doing a backyard over in South Australia, and I came out of it with a really bad ITB injury, to the point where I think 1 week I'd run less than 10Ks and I couldn't even really run 2 without severe ITB problems. And obviously I've announced it to the world, but I've no real following. Like, no one would really give a shit if I said, oh, I've got to do it, push it back or whatever. But it was in that moment where I said no, like Maddie and I, we forged a plan how we're going to move forward. It was just mainly working around strength work and Pilates and swimming, whatever limited based aerobic activity I could do. But in that moment I said, no, I'm going to see this through. However I can, I'm going to see it through. And I think moments like that is why I finished. That if you have, our willpower is as low as it's ever been, because every hard thing that humanity's ever faced, there's an easy way to do it. And yeah, that's nice for us. But when you're presented with adversity, you crumble because you're used to an easier way to do anything. But if you know that there's 5 options on the table and you can genuinely remove giving up, if you know that you can flip a switch, then you'll do anything. The great training is why you might break a record, but the reason that I finished, the reason that you finished, is those moments of adversity that we persevered through and said, no, I'm going to see this through. So I think knowing that and knowing that I could have easily just quit in that moment and didn't, that was where I was able to just know that giving up wasn't an option. Maybe my leg would break and I wouldn't finish that way, but that was the only way that I wasn't going to finish.
Mate, just tape yourself up like a mummy and run.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, I obviously, as I said, didn't get to follow it during. I was on my own run, and but seeing it retrospectively and looking back, I was like, this is so cool. I've spent some time watching your content after my run. And as I mentioned earlier, just like an unbelievable privilege to have you on the run. Philbo, Mally, Andre, as you mentioned, but all the runners at the one time, just insane. Last question from social media is, what's the biggest lesson that you learned from your FKT?
I think just it changed the way that I viewed the world, in that I really wanted to keep doing those crazy things, but like doing that, really, there is so much more beauty in the world that I never really slowed down enough to take any notice of. And it really instilled this belief in me that I could make a difference in the world. Taking a bit of time to reflect, I was able to then see that that is working in life changes, not every 2 or 3 years doing another run, because that's not sustainable. But yeah, helping to just really appreciate the good and the beauty of the world, because there will always be darkness, right? There will always be hard times, always be adversity. But I think maybe just appreciating little moments more than I ever have, whether that's just a laugh or with your family or sharing a good meal or beer, but trying to be more present in those moments is something I really took from it.
Yeah, mate, it was unreal to have you on the journey. It's been unreal to have you on the long run. I think one thing that we obviously spoke about, that you're working for Life Changer now, and that's awesome, and you're having a real impact on youth mental health. Outside of that, you also do some keynote speaking. Where can people follow you or book you for a keynote?
Lachy_Cameron on Instagram. I guess you could flick me a message. But I think me moving forward now, like Life Changer is definitely my priority, like focusing on that. But it is such a cool tool to every day you're practicing being a presenter in front of an audience of teenagers, which generally isn't overly receptive.
Of course.
So when you're then presenting to people who are interested in what you have to say, it just feels a lot easier. So that is one where I feel like you're sharpening that tool every day, working in sometimes a hostile environment.
That would be challenging, mate. Unreal. Well, yeah, as I mentioned, it's been a pleasure to have you on the long run. Thank you for giving me your time. I know that it's been a bit of a journey, but I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Giddy up.
Thank you, mate. Giddy up.
Big thanks to Working for lending me the podcast space, and to you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share it with others. If you're chasing a long-distance running goal, whether it's your first half marathon, an ultra, or even a multi-day expedition, I'd love to help you get there. With Sean Bell Run Coaching, I create personalized programs based on your goals, experience, and lifestyle, helping you enjoy the process and stay consistent. And if you're after a keynote speaker who brings big energy and real impact, I'm here to deliver. I speak to businesses, schools, and sporting teams to help them giddy up and level up. For me, giddy up meant running around Australia in record time. But for your team, it might mean taking ownership of their health, stepping up in their career, or having a conversation they've been putting off. If I can go from a football bench warmer to a running world record holder, what's possible for you and your team if you're prepared to giddy up and level up? You can find everything, run coaching, keynotes, and more at SeanBellRuns.com or on socials at SeanBellRuns. Giddy up. Giddy up!